In this video, we're going to create an installer for a Mac application. Installing software on a Mac is generally easier than on Windows since you don't have to set up the file registry and associations. You could, in the simplest case, just copy files to the customer computer. However, for a commercial application, you'll probably want to do a number of other things. You may want to password protect your installer before you put it on your website. You may want to compress it so it downloads much faster onto the customer computer. Perhaps you want to add a license agreement that the user must agree to before they can actually start the install process. And during the install process, you may want to present a little bit of vendor branding. To build an installer, create a folder on your Mac, and inside that folder put a set of nested files and folders that you want to be placed onto the customer's computer. So in addition to your application, you may have a user guide, some examples, tutorials, and so on. We also have another folder here with some images that we're going to use while we construct this installer. And once we've built the installer, it's going to be placed into this output folder. We're going to actually build the installer with an application called ClickInstall, which we'll launch now. Let's go ahead and set up this record of information for building our installer. First, let's give the record a name. You might want to use ClickInstall to build installers for many different applications. And we'll select the folder of files and folders that are going to be installed on the user's computer. So we're going to select this folder. And there's the path to the folder, and it goes ahead and gives us a default name of the folder. Once it gets installed to the user's computer, you can change that if you'd like. And it also gives a default name of the actual setup file that's going to be generated. Again, you can change that if you'd like. On a Mac environment, you'll probably want to go ahead and just install directly into the applications folder. If you don't set that checkbox, it'll prompt the user where they want to install the software. So we're going to add a little picture representing our application that will appear on the main install screen. So we'll click the select button and go to our images folder, and let's add this image, and let's also select another image that we can use as a background for the main install screen. We'll select a path to the folder where this setup file is going to be generated into. So let's go ahead and select that output folder for that path. So there's the output folder. We have everything pretty much set up now, but if you create multiple in setup files for different applications, you'll probably want some branding, like a company logo, to appear up in the corner of each of those different installer screens. And an easy way to do that is to go to your preferences dialog, and let's select our company logo that was in this images folder. That way we can apply it to all the different types of installer setup files that we create. So we'll just set the checkbox so that little icon now, or that little image, logo image, will appear on the main screen of our installer. Let's say that there are some requirements for this application. Perhaps this application was designed to only work on Mac OS 10.9 or later. So we might set the minimum OS requirement, and maybe we'll also require that the customer computer have at least 1 GB of RAM. When a customer attempts to run the installer, if the computer doesn't meet the minimum requirements, a nice friendly error message will be presented to the user, and the install won't be allowed. A couple other things we may want to set up is we may want to create kind of a license agreement that's presented to the user before they can actually install. If we click that default button, and it allows us to, it just kind of creates kind of a standard license agreement with some little HTML formatting. We can take a look at what that license agreement will look like when it's presented on the user's computer, and then go ahead and customize it a little bit so we get the look and the wording exactly the way we want it. And once we have everything set up, we're ready to go ahead and build our installer. So we'll just click the build button. It takes a moment or so, and it's now completed, and we have our installer ready to deliver to a customer. In our output folder, we see the two files that were generated, the setup file itself and just a zipped copy of the setup file. If you distribute by CD, you'll just copy the setup file onto the CD and deliver it to customers. Otherwise, you'll upload the zipped copy of that file to your website and put a link to that file. When the user clicks the link, the zip file will be immediately downloaded to the customer's Mac computer and unzipped, and they'll locate it in their downloads folder. So let's go ahead and launch the setup file, and a install screen is presented. We see our background image, an icon representing our application, the logo we added to it, copyright information. If we click the install button, we see the license agreement has been presented to the user. If they agree, it goes ahead and installs it, and it opens up the applications folder, and there we see our folder with our application has been installed. As you've seen, it's pretty easy to create an installer. There's some additional features you may want to use. For example, if you want to provide a little instruction to the user in the main install screen, you can just type some text here. If you want to add a desktop alias or shortcut during the install process, you can click one of these options. Another possibility is adding an info button by just inserting some text here, which can be stylized with HTML tags, and then an info button appears on the main install screen that the user can click and reads about some information before they go ahead with the install process. You can also have a pre-installation notes panel that pops up during the process, or once the install is completed, a post-installation notes panel can pop up, maybe with a changed list of all the new features added by that version of the application they just installed. If you plan on creating lots of installer files and you want to really automate the process of getting those installer files up to your website, you can actually enter the username and password of your FTP account on that website, and then define a location where the generated zip file gets uploaded, and it'll automatically get uploaded during the process of building the installer. Some other options you may want to take advantage of: if you want to password protect your installer, just to type the password here, and then so that same password would have to be used by anybody trying to run the installer. However, if you want to customize it so that it's a computer unique password, that's what these options are for. And it pops up a dialog, and you have to fill in some information here, and essentially that will customize it so that on every computer, a computer unique password is required, where the user has to give you a password number and you give them back a password that will only work on their computer, that you can derive from click install. So there's a number of advanced features that you may choose to add to the setup application that you generate.